Hi everyone, this is Constellations here, and today we have the math guide for the next new character in version 3.0, which is Collei. She's not entirely new, she's in the manga. I myself have not really looked at the Genshin manga as well, but I know that she's in the manga and she has a relationship with Amber. So these are her base stats. She has attack percentage as her ascension stats. Okay. Base attack is a little low. It's not too bad, it's average to low, really. And for the purpose of this math guide, I'm using Allergy because we are going to use the Tighnari math guide to as a basis of reference, terms of rotation, EI, etc. to do the math here. I'll talk more about her other potential builds and weapons, etc. in this video too. But for now, we will do Allergy for the end. Okay. I myself, I do not have R5. I only have R1 Allergy for the end. Okay. Now let's jump straight into what we're going to cover here. So obviously, since this is Math Guide 1 for Collei, we'll talk about her talents, her passive, her constellations, and then we'll do a quick summary. Okay. And I'll talk about some notes and assumptions, the rotation comp and ER, what's Collei's damage like in a Tighnari Yae AggraSpread comp. And we'll have a TLDR for the video and also what's next. Okay, so talents wise, normal attack talent, supplicant's bowmanship. She's not an NA character, so I'm not going to go into detail on her NA talent. Let's talk about her E. Elemental skill E, Floral Blush, sorry. Brush. Okay. Skill damage is 257.04% at level 9, and it's actually 2 hits. Because when you use, it's the first hit, and then when it returns, it does another hit again. At level 12, this is 302.4% times 2. So it's actually a pretty high modifier, and it's on a 12-second cooldown. So essentially, Collei throws a boomerang that does damage on initial hit, and again when it returns. So for a 4-star character, like I said, this is actually a pretty high multiplier. Now, to put things into perspective, right, Xingqiu's E, which is commonly known as like a high attack multiplier E, right? At level 12, Xingqiu's E is 336% plus 382.4%. Yeah, so it's not far off when you look at 302.4% x2. It's about 100% lower, 100 to 110% lower. But we are talking about 600 and 700%, so it's already very high. But one thing to note is that Collei's E is on a 12-second cooldown, whereas Xingqiu is on a 21-second cooldown. Insane, right? The damage is nowhere. I mean, Collei's multiplier is a lot more than half of Xingqiu, but cooldown is almost half. Now, bear in mind, I'm only using Xingqiu just to compare because it's the first character that comes to mind when I think of a high damage E with 2 hits for a 4-star. No hate towards Xingqiu. Okay, in the first place, he does more. Attack multiplier wise anyway. So one thing to note is that Collei's E does double of Tighnari's E as well. The A1 passive synergy for E is awesome, and we'll talk about it in the passive session. Yeah, recently I watched the English demo for the teaser and realized that Collei addressed him as Tighnari, so we will go with the Tighnari pronunciation. Not sure whether that's the right one, but either way. Alright, so let's talk about the next talent. So I mean, the E looks pretty good, right? Let's talk about her Q, which is the Trump Card Kitty. You have level 9, level 12 here. These are the percentage figures now. There's a lot to break down here. But before I go into the percentages, let me just quickly talk about this here, okay? So Collei, actually, what she does in her Q is that she creates a field with continued explosions. First off, it's a big explosion, which is your explosion damage over here. Okay, I mean, it's decent for a Q. It's not like overwhelmingly good or underwhelming. But it's followed by subsequent smaller explosions via the Kulin Amba Lipping. I'm not sure how to pronounce this, okay? But essentially, it's the kitty. Okay, this is the name of the kitty. So her kitty is jumping around, and every time it jumps, it explodes and does a AoE damage. So this is called the leap damage. So you have her kitty leaping around. So the leap damage of a Q is actually pretty decent because I've broken down the animation by frame analysis. I can see that it's per 0.5 seconds, it does 1 leap damage, which means every 1 second you get 100 plus, 150 plus, to almost 170 plus, 150 to 170 plus, depending on your talent level. Now, 2 ticks per second is 12 deep damage without A4 passive. With her A4 passive, if you extend it fully, it's 18 ticks. So we are talking about 882.24% without A4 passive in effect. And with A4 passive fully utilized, you have 1323.36%. Add that to the 343.1% you see, is pretty high multiplier, right? It's 1670. And for here, it's almost 2000. It's 1958. Sorry, in fact, it's 1960. So it's pretty insane. Why am I manually counting you when I have it here? Okay, so total all ticks is over here. Okay, for level 9 and level 12. Now, obviously, all ticks is a very, very optimistic scenario. In order for all the ticks to hit, your opponent must either be big enough to take all hits, or all mobs are put together. So basically, it's like Ganyu and Ayato's AoE. Like they are Q. Same concept with a quadratic scaling. But here's the thing. Collei's field size is smaller, which means it's going to be easier to achieve your so-called quadratic scaling if you can get the mobs together. Another thing is that just based on the animation itself, it does look like, actually not just the animation, I just saw a video where the AoE tick, right, per tick damage, right, I managed to see one video where it showed the extent of the furthest range of the AoE of the tick, the AoE of the tick. It's actually pretty big. It looks bigger than Ganyu's and Ayato's, to be honest. So what this means that it's a lot easier to achieve quadratic on her, and also a lot easier to get more ticks, because the Q field size itself is smaller. Okay. So I would say that a boss like Primojovic should be enough with a smaller Q size, because for Ganyu, right, you need Ashtaha type of size to ensure all hits are done, all hits hit on that single enemy. For Collei's Q with a smaller field size, I would expect that Primojovic size is enough. But of course, this is assuming Primojovic doesn't move around. If you have ever done Primojovic, especially extensive rotation testing on it, you will know that he always moves around, always pushes you out of the battlefield. Okay, but so that putting that aside, what we can say is that this is a Q that has quite a bit of variance. Quite a bit of variance, what I'm saying. Quite a bit of variance in terms of its damage. The total multipliers right now that you have here, it shows you the best case total all hits on a single target. Obviously, if you have quadratic scaling, it's going to do even better. Okay, like 2 enemies, double this, 4 enemies. No, sorry, 4 enemies, I think it's 8 times or something. I can't remember exactly. Okay, but it's quadratic scaling. And worst case, let's say you hit half the number of hits, which is very doable because of how big her AoE tick is and how small her field is. Okay, now obviously this is all assuming that the enemy is still within the field itself. With a smaller field size, it's also easier for the enemy to be out of the field and not do any damage as well. Okay, so yeah, that's why I say it has quite a bit of variance, but even if you take the worst case scenarios, the half hits, right, it's still 1000%, 1000%, and this is A4 passive. This does not require any constellations. This you can achieve with C0 if you have the right comp setup. So to be honest, I wasn't expecting her Q to be so strong before doing this math guide. When I was doing the Tighnari math guide too, I was really focusing on her off-field application consistency and uptime. I didn't really look at her modifiers per se. I have to say I'm pleasantly surprised when I did all this portion here, this section here. It's pretty high. So let's talk about a passive next. Gliding Champion of Sumeru. Remember I mentioned she has a relationship with Amber, right? So yeah, Amber, yeah. Alright, the next passive is Flora Sidewinder. So if one of your party members has triggered Burning, Quicken, Aggravate, Spread, Bloom, Hyper Bloom, or Burgeon, so basically Burning, okay? And then you have the Quicken or Catalyze related reactions, Quicken, Aggravate, Spread. And then you have the Bloom related reactions, Bloom, Hyper Bloom, and Burgeon reactions, okay? So basically, if you trigger any of the Dendro reactions, let me put it away, okay? Any of the Dendro related reactions, if one of your party members trigger it before the Floral Ring returns, it will grant the character the Sprout effect upon return. So think of it this way, okay? You throw out your boomerang, after less than 1 second or about 1 second, it comes back, okay? If you have triggered one of the Dendro reactions within this 2-second window, let's take it as a 2-second window. First cast 1 second, sorry, throw 1 second, return another second, okay? 2 seconds. Within the 2-second window, if you trigger a Dendro related reaction, it will give a Sprout effect upon return, which basically allows you to do damage, Dendro damage to nearby opponents for 3 seconds continuously. Which means that basically her Dendro application, off-field Dendro application, is extended by 3 seconds. So instead of a E giving you 2 seconds worth of Dendro application, it's now giving you 5 seconds. Okay, the understatement here is saying if another sprite is triggered, right, this is in the event that you use something like Sacrificial. That's why they have to state this, that it doesn't stack, it simply resets. Okay? So sprout damage is considered E damage. The weird thing here is that the English description for the skill did not actually include this, but the Chinese description actually specifies this. I mean, anyway, it's kind of expected, but it's good for it to be explicitly confirmed. Okay, so I'll include this here. So this passive is really good, okay, in terms of continued off-field application, right? Because we basically allows you to be able to deal 5 seconds of continued Dendro application just from her E. It's very nice. 5 seconds since the 3 seconds of Sprout starts after the following returns of second. I've already described this earlier, but yeah, so you know. And it's about 8 seconds with a C2. So with a C2 plus a A4 passive below, you have 100% attack on Dendro application. Without C2, it's almost 100% too. Okay, now let's talk about the next A4 passive, the Languid Wood. When a character within the Guilin Amba zone, which is a Q field, triggers any of the Dendro related reactions, the zone's duration is increased by 1 second. A simple single trump card kitty can be extended by 3 seconds, which means if you have characters that, because you have 3 other characters in your team, right? Of the 3 other characters, as long as people are constantly triggering the Dendro reactions within her Q field, which is 6 seconds, okay? 6 seconds of Q field, you just need to trigger 3 Dendro related reactions, which is doable, very doable. And that will extend your trump card kitty to 9 seconds. So from 6 to 9 seconds. Again, it's about extending her Dendro off-field Dendro application, right? It's to the extent of enabling 100% really. And like I said, if you're using someone like Tighnari, it's extremely easy, basically. Because if you remember, each charge attack is 2 reactions, be it whether it's Quicken / Catalyze or Aggravate. So in the alternative, Yae AggraSpread comp is also very achievable, but I have to look into the rotation detail to be sure, but I'm pretty sure it is. Okay. The only thing is whether the character being within the field is the main challenge here. Unless it works for all-field character too, which it should. Okay, so meaning like your active character is within the field, you will consider your other off-field character as within the field as well, within the zone as well. I'm not sure whether that applies, but probably we need some proper testing when Collei is out to really test that out. So I can't really say for sure. But at the very least, I can confidently say that the Tighnari Math Guide 2, no problems in extending this. For Yae AggraSpread with single Dendro, which is Collei, should be doable. Okay. Alright. So those are the passives. Now let's talk about Constellations. C1 Deepwood Patrol. When in the party and not on the field, Collei's energy recharge is increased by 20%. Okay, so it's very, very nice, straightforward. Helps with your energy regen, and you want to cast a Q on 100% of time for sure. This really comes into play and be really good when you are using a attack weapon on her, or a DPS weapon on her, rather than like what I'm doing now, I'm giving her a support weapon. So if you give her any of the support weapon like Favonius, Sacrificial, although in this case Sacrificial not I guess you can say that it's a support weapon if you're using her together with Tenacity. Doable. And what I'm trying to say is that all of these weapons, including Allergy, they all have ER subset, so this C1 is not that crucial. But nevertheless, it's still welcome. Okay. But it's what I'm saying that the value of this C1 increases if you're using a DPS weapon on her. I'm not, but I might try it out. Okay. Okay, C2. So this C2 is really long in terms of description, so bear with me here. Basically what it does is that it improves your passive talent, which is the one that gives you a sprout when you do a reaction within a 2-second window. So now it's changed to the Floral Ring will grant the character the sprout effect upon return, which will continuously deal Dendro damage equivalent to 40% of Collei's attack to nearby opponents for 3 seconds. Which means you do not need to trigger a reaction in the first 2 seconds, because the moment it returns, you will automatically get a sprout. However, from the movement of using her E, so the moment of throwing out the boomerang before it even returns, to the moment that this instance of sprout ends. So in other words, it's a 2 plus 3 second, 5 second window. Okay, 5 second window for you to trigger Dendro related reaction. If you do that, it gets extended by 3 seconds to 8 seconds. So basically it's 5 to 8 seconds. And can only be extended once. If you trigger it again, then initial effect will be removed. Basically it's just saying that it doesn't allow 2 effects to be active at the same time when you're using something like Sacrificial. Right? And obviously you need to have unlocked the talent, right? Not how would you upgrade the talent. So I'll say this is a very nice C2, okay, in terms of utility. So basically sprout will always occur when you use E. And it's very easy for you to extend it. Instead of a 1 to 2 seconds window, it's a 5 second window. You are gonna trigger a Dendro reaction in the 5 second window. Okay? You are going to. Something is wrong if you're not triggering a Dendro reaction within a 5 second window. Like a 1 to 2 second window is very tight. For example, if you get knocked back, you might not be able to trigger reaction in time. But 5 second window, you can get knocked back and still be able to trigger it. Okay, that's one scenario. So like I said, instead of a rather tight 1 to 2 second window to extend the 2 second of Dendro application to 5 seconds, you start with 5 seconds and you get 5 second window to extend it to 8 seconds. So that's why I said this is a very nice C2. Like even if I only want a C0 Tighnari eventually, I'm not sure yet. I'll do more math guides before I decide. I'll still try to minimally get her C2. In fact, her C4, because I'm greedy. I want that EM buff for the team. But yeah, C2 is very nice in my opinion. Okay, so C3 and C5 are all very straightforward, right? Just talk about them, just increasing the talent level, and her multipliers are not too bad, so that's that. Now, C4. C4 is a pretty decent Dendro team support function. Basically, when you use her Q, it increases all nearby characters EM by 60 for 12 seconds, not including Collei herself. Now, I know people will say that, oh, 60 EM is so pathetic compared to 200 EM from C6 Diona, 125 EM from Albedo, and what else? 200 plus EM from Sucrose. But you gotta consider one very important thing, okay? Condition of use. It's so simple. Don't need to be in the field. Just use Collei's Q and switch to another character, and everyone in the team gets this 60 EM. Oh, sorry, not everyone, excluding Collei herself, because she's not an EM skilling character. You'll notice that she has no EM skilling. I've gone through her kit so far, right? There's no EM skilling. But I know that people feel that it's a bit low. I also personally think that it should at least be 80 EM. 60 does feel a little too lack of an impact. Although I understand that the fact that it's so easy to trigger, right? There's no condition related to it. You don't need to go make sure your character is on field, etc. But I think this is a trend where you'll start to see that 4-star characters give you 60 EM boost, 5-star character gives you 120 EM boost, and Draco maybe is going to be the one that gives you 200 EM without any restrictive conditions. That's what I would expect. Okay. Moving forward for the Sumeru characters, because now the EM has become more important for the characters whose element can trigger Dendro related reactions. Their EM buff is going to be lower. One other thing is the 200 EM from C6 Diona, the 125 EM for Albedo, the other EM sources from Sucrose, Kazuha, etc. all of them do not react with Dendro. Okay, that's the reason why they give more EM. Or maybe the Hoyoverse design it in a retrospective manner. Okay, but whatever the case, okay, just expect that then Sumeru characters with elements that can react with Dendro related reactions probably aren't going to give high EM like the past, but they will probably give you this level of EM figures, but with very easy to fulfill condition. Just use your Q. That's it. Everyone gets EM buff. It makes things a lot simpler as well. Okay? Simpler. Alright, so that's the C4. I like it, but I do think that I do hope that it will at least be buffed to 80 EM. Like we call that Hazel. Hazel gives 80 EM buff, right? Right, now let's talk about her C6 Forest of Falling Arrows. When the flowering hits, it will create a miniature Collei Amba that will deal 200% of Collei's attack as Dendro damage. So 200% attack on her E that already does like what, 600% at level 12? That's like a 33% damage increase on her E. Not that fantastic per se. But I saw the animation, basically this additional miniature Collei Amba is like a leap damage. The same animation as a leap damage in her Q. So it's like adding a 200% leap damage to her E. And like I said, it's about 33% at level 12. So, I mean, it's not bad, but we have to see in the math how good it is. Okay? So, now that I've gone through the constellations, right, I'll say her constellations are all pretty decent, especially considering she's a 4-star. I really like her C2 and C4. Though C4 will be better if the EM amount is slightly increased to 80. Now let's talk about kit summary in totality. Right, now we've talked about talents, we've talked about passive and constellations. Let's talk about her as a whole. She has high Q multipliers in total, with bonus quadratic scaling on her Q. High E multiplier in total. 100% uptime on Dendro application at C2, almost 100% without C2. So also pretty nice. And Q has multiple hits for overcoming ICD, and also easily setting up the allergy buff. I mean, even her E is easy to set up allergy buff because of Sprout. And the fact that it hits twice on the E itself. So, I mean, just looking at kit before doing the math, I was already pretty sure that the typical attack grid build will be better than EM for Collei, especially since there's no EM scaling. But nevertheless, I'll still include it in the math here so you guys can see. Okay. Now, couple of things to note though. Although she has high multipliers, her base attack is kind of average to low amongst 4-star characters, which sets her back. I mean, something like Skyward Harp can compensate for a little for it, but depends on whether you want to build her as like support, hybrid support, or DPS, right? For me personally, probably something like hybrid support, like Allergy with 4 Deep Wood, with Tighnari. If I'm using her in the Yae single Dendro with Collei comp, right? I'll probably give her 4 Nobliss, buff Yae more. I'll talk more about that in the next video. Okay. Now, more importantly, right? Although Collei has very nice multipliers, she doesn't have anything in her kit that helps her do more damage on skill, do more damage skilling. What do you mean by this? So, take for example someone like Xingqiu. Okay, his constellations do help him do more damage. But for Collei it's different. Collei's kit is really more about extending her Dendro off-field application. Okay? I mean, I'm not saying that it's bad, okay? It complements the utility rule very well and I like it. I like that I have a 4-star new Dendro character, a new element, being able to do 100% off-field application uptime. That's awesome, right? That makes her very versatile in many comps. Anyway, another thing I want to say is that in most comps that you're using, you will be looking to buff the main DPS, not Collei, so best to manage your expectation on her damage. I mean, it's not... I have to say that her multipliers are high. Okay, I can't say that it's low. It is high. It's just that, you know, there are other conditions here that make it such that you, even if it's high, don't expect it to work like a traditional DPS character per se. As good as a traditional DPS character, and put it that way. Should still be able to do decent damage, I'm pretty sure. And we'll see that in the damage section later. I'll not do a quick note on the weapons since we're talking about her kit summary, right? Giving her 4-star options like Stringless or Ally Hunter, right? Or even 5-star weapons without any ACA interaction like Skyward Harp should allow her to perform even better as a 4-star sub DPS because of how high her multipliers are. And Stringless sounds really good, right? Stringless increases her E and her Q. Ellie Hunter gives her flat up 40% damage bonus, and she's off you most of the time, so you can use it. Use Ellie Hunter can work on her. Now, the Skyward Hub. The reason why I mentioned Skyward Hub is, like I said, there's no NA or CA interaction required. If you notice, a lot of the 5-star boosts require that. Or Last Star, Amos, Thundering Pulse, what else? I guess Aqua Simulacra can work for her, but it's a bit more, how should I put it? It's better for HP scaling character. But it's definitely to work if somehow you have a spare one lying around. Okay, but if I'm going to try out a DPS build for her, or if I do a math DPS build for her, or fully focus DPS, right? Skyward Hub will be my go-to option for 5-star weapon. But 4-star weapon like Stringless and Ellie Hunter probably will perform pretty close to Skyward Hub. Wait, not necessarily, because her CR and CD stats are not high. So Skyward Hub might be better actually. I mean, the difference between Skyward Hub and Stringless may be bigger than I think. Okay, anyway, those are the DPS weapon options. Okay, support options will be Favonius, Sacrificial, or Allergy. I'll very likely give her Allergy since it's also very easy for her to get a 4 Sigils for Allergy. Like, even you want to get a character Allergy, right, you need to make sure that it's easy for them to trigger. Okay, and this is the case for Collei. Not to mention EM is even more important now, right? Alright, so that's the kit summary. I hope me spending 25 minutes talking about Collei has been helpful to you in terms of understanding her entire kit. Some quick summary about her. Let's talk about the notes and assumptions. So I already have a comment rotation for Tighnari Math Guide 2, and we'll use that. Allergy and the new artifact set, Deepwood Memories, the 2-piece Dendro 15%, 4-piece 30% Dendro resistance shred will be used here for Collei. Collei is assumed to have standard ICT across all attacks. Catalyze is similar to Superconduct rather than EC duration wise, it's a flat 7 seconds. With Collei's 100% uptime on continuous off-field Dendro application, I will assume that she's going to trigger more Catalyze / Quicken than Spreads. Because the more frequent your application is, the higher the chance of it being the one that interacts with the continual electro application coming from the other characters. Now, like I say, it's also possible for electro to trigger the Catalyze, but we have 2 electro characters, so it's very hard to say. But for the purpose of the math, I'll just take a more conservative approach, and I will assume she does more Catalyze / Quicken than Spreads. Alright? So Sprout is assumed to tick every 1 second. I have not found a video showing the actual Sprout effect yet. Now, the other thing before let me go back to the previous point. So the 2 electro characters that I'm talking about, if it's someone like Fisher / Raiden with Yae, right? They don't have high multiple hit E and Qs like Collei or Tighnari. So they have a bit of time before they really actually apply element again, even though they're constantly attacking. That's why the chance of the Collei being the one triggering Catalyze / Quicken is higher than Electro triggering it. Okay, now it really depends on how your Electro character kit is like, to talk about who does the Catalyze or Quicken. Okay, now more importantly here, Sprout. I'm assuming that it takes every 1 second because I have not found a video showing the actual Sprout effect yet. If you guys have, do let me know. I'm happy to try it, to look at it and see whether it's really the Sprout effect. I in fact found one video that almost looked like the Sprout effect and realized that it's not. It was simply the Q. The Q is really fast. Okay, so total number of reactions for Collei Q plus E, I am assuming it to be 9. I will assume 5 catalyze, 4 spreads. So it's a 5-4 distribution. If you have C2, since you get additional more hits, right? If we assume that Sprout is only 1 per second, then it's 10 for C2. So I'll say it's 5-5 distribution. For Collei E alone, why do I need to have a Collei E alone? Because in the Tighnari Math Guide 2 rotation, we do 2 Colleis E and 1 Collei Q in the entire 24-second rotation. Okay, so for the Collei E itself, I will expect that it's a 1-1 distribution or 1-2 for 1-1 for C0 or C1, 1-2 for C2+. Okay. Alright, so these assumptions are all there, so that you know how I done my math or my analysis. So in terms of the rotation, com, and ER, please refer to Tighnari Math Guide 2 for all the details, because we have all that over there. The rotation, the com options, the energy, all it's all there. So just check that out, yeah. Now let's look at Collei's damage in Tighnari Yae and AggraSpread com. Before that, let me just quickly show the stats that I'm using. Okay. So like I said, I'm going to do the EM permutation here with artifact builds. So we have the typical attack elemental damage and a crit circlet. Okay, can be crit damage, can be crit rate. It depends on how your artifact stats are like. Because the essential stat is attack, remember that. Okay, and then you have the EM, the elemental damage and crit. So basically, we switch attack to EM. And then you have another further scenario where you switch elemental damage for EM. And then the next permutation is triple EM. Okay, so I want to show you guys as you slowly progress to a full EM how Collei's damage look like. And these are the CRCD stats. So when you use a crit circlet, you can at least get something like 62 CI, 168 crit damage. When you're using a weapon like Allergy that has no crit stats at all. If you use something like Skyward Harp, her crit stats will look really good, right? This is gonna be, no, if you have R5 Skyward Harp, it's gonna be like 80 CR, 82 CR with 208 crit damage. If it's R1 Skyward Harp, it will be 188 crit damage. But for the triple EM, you have to drop your crit because you're not using a crit circlet. It drops even more, 50 and 129. And if you have ever farmed for a full EM character, you know that it's not easy to achieve 50 CR and 129. Okay, because EM means that pieces are more rare. They are really rarer, so it's gonna be even harder to get such stats as opposed to the typical cookie cutter attack, elemental damage, and crit circlets. Even my Kazuha doesn't have this level of stats on his full EM build. But to keep things fair, I wanted to leave the same five rows going wrong kind of permutation throughout the artifact stats. Okay. Oh, and this is the EM that she will have. Okay, look at this here. This, if you don't have C4 Tighnari in the first half of the Tighnari, the double Dendro and double Electro comp. First half, because it's been two halves, right? Two 12-second halves each. So the first half you have 360 to 520, and it gradually increases to 1k as you get more and more EM instead. And if you have C4 Tighnari, obviously you get a plus 120. Now second half, this is how it looks like. Okay, with lesser buffs, you also get lesser EM. But still okay, right? You almost have 1k as well with a C4 Tighnari. Okay, ER is 166.1 now, right? Because this is the best you can afford. And then if you include C1, that's going to be like what, 186.1 CR. And if you remember the ER figure from my Tighnari Math Guide 2, this is more than enough. Okay. Alright, so with those stats being put into perspective, let's look at her damage. So I've already included spread damage here. This is her damage from C1 to C6, C3 and C4, and C0, C1 is pretty much the same. Okay. Using an R5 allergy, she can hit up to 183k. And you'll see that it's not too big of a variance from C0 to C6. Hell, even from C5 to C6 is not that big of a variance. So her C6 is really not that impactful. I mean, it still gives you slightly more, but it's not that impactful. Okay. But more importantly, considering the fact that she's using Allergy, a team support weapon, the rotation being aimed at maximizing Tighnari and Yae's damage, you already have 2 DPS there, okay? You are focusing on those 2 DPS, not on Collei. So with all this in mind, I'll say that this damage here is actually pretty decent, right? It's pretty decent for a 4-star character that is somehow built like a hybrid support kind of character. I don't want to call it a full support. A full support wouldn't be using Deadwood Memories, because Deadwood Memories helps Collei's damage. If you use something like 4 Noblies or even 4 Tenacity, then that is really pure damage. Pure support, okay? Now, if you intend to give, like I said, the 4 Monopolies for 4 tenacity to provide more attack percent team buffs, Collei's personal damage will be lower than this, while overall team DPS improves. But if you are using a Dendro main along with her, or if you are focusing on bloom related reactions, right? 4DM would be better because remember all the bloom related reactions do then AoE Dendro damage. Even if your Pyro character or your Electro character is the one triggering the Hyper Bloom or the Bludgeon, it's still Dendro damage, so the 4DM will help. Okay, so if you are doing bloom related reaction comp, 4DM on Collei is better, even as a support. Or if you're using a Dendro main with her, because you want to be the support for the Dendro main. But in a scenario like say the alternative Yae single Dendro comp that I talked about in the Yae math guide for the previous video, if you're using that kind of comp, then obviously something like 4 Noblies would be better for the team DPS. Yeah? So this is like what I mentioned here. Now remember at C2 her 4 TOTM has almost 100% uptime. It's basically 8 seconds of Sprout, but the tenacity effect lasts for 3 seconds from the last E hit, right? So you say plus 3, 11 seconds. Collei's E is on a 12-second cooldown, so there's only 1 second downtime. Now this is in theory, of course the rotation must work good enough such that you are able to cast Collei's E right on cooldown. The moment it's up, you have to be able to cast it in order to maintain the highest uptime, and the rotation must allow you to do that. That's number 1. Number 2, your rotation must be at least 24 seconds. If not, it's going to be very awkward. It's either 12 or 24 seconds. Otherwise, it's going to be very awkward. Yeah, you're going to have to wing it. You can't follow your rotation as you go through first, second, third rotation. You have to wing it such that you always use Collei's E when ready, and it doesn't match perfectly. Like if you have a 22-second rotation, obviously it's not going to match perfectly. Okay, so that's one thing to consider. In fact, I have actually finished the math guide for the Yae single Dendro comp. I'm using 4 Noblies, not 4 tenacity. Then I don't give myself a headache with regards to rotation. Alright, so I hope this gives you a good view on her damage, as well as artifact build options. Now bear in mind this is not her highest damage potential, okay? I'm not trying to be unfair to Collei or anything. I'm simply taking the math guide, the comp that I have already done for Tighnari, to apply and do Collei's damage for easier arrangement of my math. Okay. Obviously, if you give her Skyward Harp and you focus on her damage, she can reach higher figures. But yeah, I'm talking about comps where we focus on maximizing the other main damages, or the mains damage. Okay. As for the artifact main stat, right, since Collei does not have any EM skilling, and EM skilling on AggraSpread is worse than transformative reactions like Electrocharged, you can see that attack damage CR is the clear winner, right? I mean, EM damage CD is still not so bad, but it's or CD or CR is still not so bad, but it's starting to fall off. And when you go all the way to triple EM, it's basically half of your attack damage CR, even with spread included. So yeah, don't go EM on her. Just go the cookie cutter attack damage CR. Okay, that's what you need to go for her. Alright, now let's go on to the TLDR itself. Collei's kit revolves around extending her off-field Dendro application, and she's able to reach almost 100% uptime without C2, and definitely 100% uptime at C2. What I mean by this is that from the moment you start casting Collei's stuff, right, where be or E or Q, as long as you pace it correctly, she's going to give you 100% uptime. Simple as that. She is going to have constant Dendro application throughout, and that's going to make your Dendro related reactions a lot easier to trigger and stuff like that. Very nice. It's awesome that a 4-star character for a new element gives you 100% of field constant application of that new element, which allows you to do all the shenanigans with regards to the reactions. Okay. Now her talent multipliers is actually on the high side for a 4-star character, but her base attack is low to average. I would prefer to give her a support weapon, but that's me personally. If you want to build her as a DPS, by all means go ahead and give her a DPS weapon. She can definitely be a pure sub-DPS weapon. I mean, it's kind of like whether you want to use 4 tenacity on Fisher, or do you want to use 2 TF with 2 18% attack artifact to maximize her damage. Player's choice. Okay. So like I said, a better weapon like Stringless, Ali Hunter, Skyharp, they all work for her as a pure sub DPS. After all, she does have quadratic scaling on her Q. She definitely has a good potential, pure sub DPS wise. Imagine the alternative Yae single Dendro comp that I mentioned in the Yae Math Guide 4. There's Pooh in there, there's animal character in there. That is going to optimize Collei's Q as well. So there is merit to doing her as a sub DPS if you really want to. If you don't really care about maximizing Yae's damage, for example, definitely doable. Okay. But me personally, I kind of prefer her being a bot. But that's me, because I have my 5-star character is very strong, fully built and stuff like that. Okay. So as for artifact builds, right? If you are using a Dendro main along with her, or if you're focusing on the bloom related reactions, 4 DM, 4 DO memories will be better. But if you intend to give her 4 Noblies for other conditions, right? If you're not using a Dendro main, if you're not focusing on bloom related reactions, you can give her 4 Noblies or 4 tenacity to give more attack percent team buffs. But if you do that, her percent damage will obviously be lower, while overall team DPS improves. Okay. So artifact main stat wise, attack damage crit is the clear winner here, be it CR or CD, since Collei has no EM scaling. So yeah, it should be pretty straightforward. Just farm this for her. Now, Collei can work well even at C0. She has almost 100% Dendro application at C0 anyway, so it definitely works well. C2 is nice for the 100% Dendro application to make it easy to extend the sprout. Don't forget how easy it is to extend the sprout with C2 versus C0 or C1. For C0, C1, you only have a 1 to 2 second window. If you get knocked back, you are screwed. Okay? If you didn't set it up correctly, if you didn't set up the other element before using Collei, for example, while C2 gives you a whole freaking 5 seconds to work with, for sure you'll be able to trigger one reaction in the 5 seconds. Even the 1 to 2, if you set up correctly, even if you get knocked back, I think it's fine. You'll still be able to trigger reaction. It's just very tight, you know. It's less forgiving. C2 is very forgiving. Think of it that way. Okay. Now C4 gives a little EM to boost to team. So if you're someone like me who likes to optimize, right? Even if it's 60 EM, you'll still be tempted to get it, right? Now C6 is not that impactful. I mean, you've seen the damage, right? C6 is not that impactful. C6 using R1 allergy as an example, you get what? For additional 14k damage, which I get additional 11k damage when I go from C3/4 to C5. So that's why I say her C6 is not that impactful. Okay? But obviously if you want to go ahead, man, go ham on her. Especially if you want to build her as a sub DPS, then all the more. Get C6, which gives her more damage. But it's not really necessary per se. She works perfectly well, perfectly fine at C0. Okay? Let me put it this way. She works perfectly fine at C0. Now, another thing is that there are rumors of Collei being an event reward is 3.0 event. If that is confirmed when the official live stream for 3.0 happens, that'll be very nice, right? Because you don't even need to pull on the banner. If you are skipping Tighnari and saving for Kusanali, you don't even need to skip the banner, you get a C0 Collei which works perfectly fine as a Dendro support. That's really, really nice on the part of Hoyoverse. Okay, good news for F2P players. Alright, now let's talk about the next video. Next video, I will do Yae Math in the Sucrose Yae Raiden/Fisher Collei comp, which is the alternative Yae single Dendro comp that I talked about in the previous video, Yae Math Guide 4. Okay, so yeah, I gotta say my interest is piqued. My interest really got piqued when I look at that alternative comp. And that's also the reason why I wanted to do a Collei Math Guide 1 here first, so that the Collei's kit, I cover it, it's clear how to build her and stuff like that before we go and talk about this alternative comp. Or this single Dendro with Animal plus double Electro comp. Okay? It's also AggraSpread, but it's a little bit different kind of AggraSpread as opposed to the Yae Tighnari. So do check out the Yae Math Guide 4 if you have not already, because it does include a alternative AggraSpread comp. And I think it's good news for everyone that Collei C0 works well, While, like I mentioned here, these are all the noteworthy constellations, yeah? And whether you want to build her sub DPS and support, really up to you. Okay? But if your fight side is very well built, you can afford to build her as a support, in my opinion. Yeah. And even the artifact instead, artifact builds, etc., all are covered here. So I think this is pretty comprehensive. The only thing that missing is like other weapons. Okay. But even in math for other weapons, but I have already mentioned the other weapons as well, like whether what you want to do in terms of pure sub DPS or support weapons, etc. So thanks everyone for watching. I hope you like the content. If you do, remember to subscribe and like the video for more. And yeah, let me know in comments if there are any specific math you would like, because I'm still keeping it very open. I have ideas, videos in my pipeline. I'm not 100% decided on which to do first, etc. Because there's a lot of point to cover. I need to do the Dendro Traveler or the Dendro main character DMC. Never may cry. And I also need to do Dory, right? I think I will probably do their math guide first before, at least one of their math guides first, the first math guide, before going further into Tighnari. So at least you know how all the new characters work in the new version, in the new meta. Because I gotta say, Yae looks like she's gonna be pretty meta now, with all the EM buffs coming from Sumeru characters. Okay. Yep. So thanks everyone for watching. Bye.